Welcome to another live episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 435. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this evening, Gail from nyflights.com. What's going on, Gail?
Hey, it's a conversation. It's a intimate conversation tonight between these two complete degenerates before you and you, our listener.
And some questions need to be answered, particularly when it comes to one Canelo Alvarez. We will talk about that in a bit. Usually, we have Daniel from Four Boxing News and the Inscribable Podcast. Unfortunately, he will not be this this evening. Hopefully, he'll be back next week. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, podcast, blog, site, etc., talking all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed here. If you want to find out information, all information on Pound for Pound Box Report, the site is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to send us any questions, comments, etc., you can do so. Email us p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, we'll have links to where to find us all over social media, links to the YouTube channel, links to the Facebook, Twitter, IG page, also links to where to find us all over the podcast platform, be it Spotify, be it Anchor, be it Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, you should be able to find Pound for Pound Boxing Report. If you wish to donate, and shout out to the donation that we got a couple of weeks back, you can do so on the page. Got Cash Me, PayPal donation links. Last but certainly not least, for fitness enthusiasts out there, if you wish to get yourself right physically, get your body right, please check out the link to Body, formerly known as Beach Body on Demand, BODI, programs for all fitness interests and goals. If you're looking for a weightlifting program, check out programs like Body Beast, Lift 4, Lift More. If you're looking for hardcore hit functional CrossFit style workouts, check out programs like 645, 6 weeks of the work, chop wood, carry water, morning meltdown, etc. If you're looking for Pilates or a yoga based program, they got you covered. Um, if you're looking for a boxing specific program, check out 10 Rounds, a 6 week program consisting of 3 days of boxing based cardio a week, 2 days a week of weight training, resistance work. Um, Currently, there is a 50% off sale for those who are interested in a subscription towards Body. Um, so if you are interested, that sale is still ongoing. At the very least, take advantage of the 2 week trial, 14-day trial, and that is for 14 days. You get free access to any and all programs on Body, including the sample workout of the new program, Dig Deeper, another um, mainly weightlifting program that's going to drop later on this year. Let's get things going, Gail, by recapping some fights that took place last week on Friday and Saturday. Uh, let's start in let's start in Mexico. The rematch between Adrian Curiel, Sivenathi Nontshinga. Curiel beat Nontshinga last November, one of the upsets of the year. In many observers' minds, it was the knockout of the year. Curiel knocked out Nontshinga in 2 rounds, and this fight was kind of weird in that for the first 7 rounds, I'd say. And I covered this fight for Three Kings Boxing. Please check out Three Kings Boxing, your source for pure, unadulterated boxing information. Shout out to the entire Three Kings Boxing crew. 2K, the man behind aka Project of Boxing, the man behind Three Kings. Bo, who you've heard on this show numerous times, head of media relations, senior writer. I'm a senior writer. Shout out to Bakari, senior writer. Red, who does the editing behind the scenes, and all the contributors behind the scenes as well. For the first 7 rounds, I did not get Gail. I did not understand what Nottingham was trying to do, his strategy. He's the taller guy. He got the longer arms, better jab, better overall skill set, but yet he was sitting in the pocket, um, infighting with him for the first 7 rounds. But once At the eighth round, it seems like just something just clicked, right? He finally stopped fighting and stuck on stupid mode, created some distance for himself. And when he did that, he began to land and land consistently with hard punches. And he was able to hurt Curiel, hurt him in the eighth round, hurt him in the ninth round, hurt him again, and eventually stopped him in the 10th round. Uh, Behind on the scorecards at the time, one of a candidate for uh, 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 if there's a category for dramatic win, come from behind win, this would be the lead. Uh, Nontshinga got the win, right? But did he make it harder on himself, given the relative ease that he had with Curiel in the previous 3 rounds? Why didn't he do that early in the fight?
Well, because before those 3 rounds, the last thing we remember of Nontshinga was him sitting on his butt on the canvas with Sparkle Lee, the referee, over him, out cold, out, just flat out, dropped, destroyed by Curiel out of nowhere. That clearly made an impression on him, and even more important, on his trainer, Colin Nathan, his longtime trainer. Colin Nathan said after the fight that what we saw was their strategy all along, exactly what they planned from the get-go, as strange as it looked. Nathan said because there was concern about Nontshinga being caught by that right hand of Curiel and being gun shy about it, I'm sure, although he didn't say that out loud, that their strategy was to let Curiel come close into the pocket where he could not get enough leverage to land that right hand, let him do what he was going to do. They knew he was also a volume puncher, very much in the sort of William Zepeda Mexican style, and that, was sort of the South African rope-a-dope, that they knew they were going to lose the early rounds. They were going to let Curiel blow off some steam, get tired, and be willing to fall behind in those early rounds, and then turn around, back him up, and have at him when his defenses were down and he was a little more worn out and vulnerable. I do think it went on a little longer than intended. Nathan was getting more and more agitated in the corner in round 6, 7 or so, midway point of the fight. It was sort of like, okay, all right, first half's gone according to plan. You need to step on the gas. But Nontshinga finally did. Really a strange approach, but I gotta say, it did work for him. But if you saw just the beginning of the fight and just the end of the fight, you would swear it was 2 completely different fights. Credit to Nontshinga, when he was finally told in no uncertain terms to execute and he knew that it was then or never, he did it. I really don't know what to make of it. If you take Colin Nathan at face value, it was the performance they intended all along, maybe a little later round knockout than they intended, but essentially the narrative they were looking for. I think we'll learn more depending on what happens in the next fight. There's discussion, of course, when you have 2 great fights to start out with. Was there going to be a third? I don't think it'll be the next fight, perhaps, or maybe no time soon, but we'll see. But I wouldn't mind seeing a trilogy fight. Truth be told, though, the first half of the fight, once you sort of settled into what was going on, it was, I will not call it boring, because I kept waiting for a shoe to drop, which it finally did, but it was monotonous. It
Right.
was the same, it was Groundhog Day every round there for the first 7 rounds. That's what makes boxing interesting, because even with all the explanations and what we saw with our own eyes, I'm still pondering what happened. But credit to Nontshinga, he got his belt back, he got his revenge.
By rule, um, if you want to go by sanctioning body rules, Nontshinga is supposed to fight Araneta, Christian Araneta, the guy he actually beat to win the IBF junior flyweight title back in no 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 I want to who he beat earlier in 2021, right? Beat him in South in his home country of South Africa. But as you mentioned, there are other options out there. You mentioned a third fight. I don't know if that's going to happen. Afterward, the special one said that he wants to become undisputed champion, but his promoter Eddie Hearn seemed to have a different idea. Talking up a bout between Nontshinga and Sonny Edwards, who was doing some tweeting afterwards. Uh, in my opinion, tell me if I'm wrong. Nontshinga may say one thing, the sanctioning bodies may say the other thing. But if Eddie Hearn has his way, are we likely to see Nontshinga and Sonny fight possibly in England this summer?
Yeah, I don't give that much of a chance. I don't discount it entirely. Sonny Edwards doesn't have a belt. And without that belt, I'm not sure there's enough of an upside for Nontshinga because he would be dangerous and very competitive, right? So if he's got a mandatory to knock off in Christian Araneta, you know, that would be a massive fight if staged in the Philippines, certainly. Araneta is just off a victory. You know, the other fighter with a belt floating around out there who I don't think will be put up as a possible opponent, but you do have Oscar Collazo. And you could certainly do business with Golden Boy over Collazo and Nontshinga. That'd be a
But
hell
is
of a.
Palazzo willing to move up from 105 to 108 though?
Well, that's a good question, but I do think that's possible. Now he doesn't risk his his effort to unify at minimum weight by going after Nontshinga. Kind of be an interesting um, way to go about it. And you know, with the WBO's rules about being able to go up a weight division against another champion, you know, if you're a current champion in a lower division or up, you know, if you're in an adjacent division, you know, that opens the door there. I don't see him going after Kenshiro, and that'd be a really bad idea. I mean, I'm not sure I see that. So, I mean, the other player in the division, the secondary title holder with the WBO is Jonathan Gonzalez. So, another Puerto Rican fighter that's, again, opens an opportunity to stage a fight somewhere where it would absolutely sell out in Puerto Rico. It'll be interesting to see. The opportunities at the tops of these divisions in these very, very small weight classes are limited in a similar way that a lot of the elite women's champions have sort of limited opportunities with fighters their equal. So the good news for us as fans is, you know, fewer places to go, fewer options. You know, they tend to make good fights and take on the best of the best because that's pretty much who's out there. I look forward to seeing him again, and I am very intrigued to see, was this performance and strategy a one-off just to get him past Curiel or what? Who knows? Nontshinga is absolutely a rare talent. He's got an amazing backstory. Um, he and his trainer are both very compelling personalities, so I'll welcome his return no matter what he decides to do. And you are muted, Michael.
And oh man, I'm sorry. What I was saying was He can't fight that way and beat um, Kenshiro. He can't fight that way and beat a Collazo should Collazo decide to move up. For those who don't know, Collazo, Oscar Collazo, WBO champion at 105 pounds, right? His he's a boxer puncher. He's not a guy who stands in there and likes to fight inside and whatnot. Because if Curiel was getting the better of him on the inside, imagine what a Collazo would do. And one of Collazo's greatest assets is his ability to fight on the inside, his body punching. Um, Kenshiro is an underrated body puncher himself. Uh, he's shown the ability to hurt on the inside. Uh, Nonshinga's best method of victory in any fight is to box, use his jab, use his power from the outside. So I think this was uh, the way he fought was basically a one-off, and we'll see where he goes from this point on. Let's go from Mexico to Madison Square Garden. This card took place the same night as Nontshinga and Curiel, and I want to focus on the undercard bout, and that is Bruce Shushu Carrington, right? To a lot of folks, a lot of prognosticators, to a lot of pundits, Shushu was the 2023 prospect of the year, right? And he fought Bernard Torres, and patience, professionalism, maturity for the first 3 rounds, one hitter quitter in the fourth round. He was trending on Twitter, kind of stole the show, if you will, with his post fight comments, paraphrasing Mike Tyson. You don't want to get too giddy when it comes to a young fighter on the come up, but if you've seen Shushu Carrington in the ring, if you saw this performance, you can't help but be excited about his future. To me, I see young Tommy Hearns, even kind of looks like a young Tommy Hearns, facially, physically in the ring. At 126, um, he's coming. He's coming. His future seems limitless, Gail.
A lot of us have been watching Shushu Carrington for some time. He's been sort of an insider's treat. He was the prospect of the year for a lot of people in 2023. He was the New York Fights prospect of the year by our team. Best thing out of Brownsville since Shannon Briggs, who was in the audience, yelling and screaming, whooping it up for his homeboy, which was great. He has a lot of support in the New York area. So smart to put him on these cards where his local fans could see him, including getting a selfie with Rosie Perez, who was in the crowd, loved it. He's got an effervescent, fun personality. He does a great Mike Tyson impression. Let me tell you, he did the whole impetuous speech, right? Word for word, just terrific. And he has got the skills, at least right now, to prove it. Bernard Torres is not a very well-known fighter, but a serviceable fighter, sturdy, out of the Philippines, no defeats, never been stopped, never been dropped. And Carrington just dropped him like a ton of bricks. It was a counter right hook that was just similar enough under the circumstances to give you that reminder of Marquez knocking out Manny Pacquiao, except that in Carrington's case, he twirled Torres around with that right hand counterclockwise from front to back. And he fell straight on his face, and bang, that was it. Fight over, done. Very impressive, very flashy. Carrington will need to continue to prove himself as he steps up in opposition, but so far, every step he's made, he has delivered. His minders at Top Rank have got to be ecstatic about him. He's now saying that he is from Shoe York. It's Shoe York City. The T-shirts, You're going to start seeing him everywhere. Shoe York City. Love it. I mean, the only thing he doesn't have at this point is his own mascot. Who knows? Maybe Abraham Nova will lend him a hand with that or let him borrow his. But there's so much to like, so much promise, and how nice to see an American-born fighter with this kind of talent personality on the rise. It's a pleasure.
Indeed, and Bridal oozing with potential, oozing with physical ability inside the ring. And to repeat what you said, to paraphrase what you said, excellent behind the mic as well. That spells potential stardom. That
Yeah.
spells uh, potential big name. That spells potential to transition from just not a popular boxer, but to a mainstream attraction. Of course, he has to keep his head on straight and do the right things and uh, um, get the fights and take care of business in the ring. But the total package, very, very, very promising.
So far,
Uh,
so good. And it occurs to me, he needs a mascot. Shit, Shannon Briggs can do it. Make Shannon Briggs your mascot.
he has the kind of personality and ability that he doesn't need a there's no mascot needed for him. Just
He
keep
doesn't
him
really.
fighting, just keep him doing what he's doing, and
Yep, but
on
he's
top
got a
rank
little
behind the scenes.
catchphrase. He's all set. He's just got so much momentum behind him in all the right ways, and he had also an excellent amateur career, which is not always the case for a young fighter. Um, he's coming into his own, and in those smaller weight divisions, you've got a lot of opportunity, to move about. He's also 5'8", which is a nice height in those smaller weight divisions. I mean, he's sitting at featherweight right now. I'm sure super featherweight and a few more divisions beyond are well within his grasp as he carries on. It's going to be a fun couple of years watching Shushu.
Indeed, absolutely, absolutely, 100%. Let's move. This was part on the undercard of the main event, which was second title defense for WBC 130-pound champion Oshaki Shock Foster, fighting the guy with the infamous mascot, as Gail alluded to, Abraham Supernova. And I don't know if Shock is an elite fighter. I tend not to think that he is, but at the very least, uh, he's very competent guy. He's not a fluke, and he's a guy who makes good fights. Gail, um, Nova was right there early, the first half of the fight, but you could see slowly but surely, Foster began to show separation, particularly in the championship rounds. He kind of put a icing on the cake, if you will, by putting Nova down in the last round to get the decision. The scorecards, in my opinion, were bogus. I don't get the one that scored for Nova, but be that as it may, to me, Oshaki Foster was the clear winner here. I was impressed by how he fought. Um, when he beat, um, uh, when he won the belt, um, that raised a lot of eyebrows to folks. He's showing himself to be a guy of real substance. And for me, the fight that I want to see him in with at some point this year, a unification bout with IBF champion Joe Cordina.
I think there's a lot of possibilities. Boy, Foster really likes to pull it out of the fire at the last minute, though. I mean, geez, um, you really gotta watch what he's up to. It's a heart attack on a plate. I mean, there's a lot of good possibilities out there. I don't know about Cordina. He's fairly comfortably ensconced with Matchroom, but I'm sure we'll be hearing about something soon. The important thing is to stay active. We are seeing that more and more and more. It was always true. It's still true. You got to stay active. So even if he has to take a stay busy fight, I'm sure he absolutely will. He seems willing to do anything. He seems to have his head on straight. Seems, very humble, and I like everything I'm seeing. But man, too close for comfort.
Yeah, but smart on his part that he signed with Top Rank late last year. I think they would do the job to keep him active, to up his profile. And right now, 130 is a division that is there for the taking. There's no number one it guy, and if he keeps fighting and keeps doing his thing, O'Shake Foster, he could be that it guy at junior lightweight. Let's
Well,
move on to
and
some.
you're right about Top Rank. They are corralling a lot of the talent in these weight divisions and adjacent, and it's going to give their fighters a lot of options internally.
Right.
They don't really have to go outside, at least not right away. And it's smart for them to build them up to where there's one guy at the top of their top ranked food chain that they can then dangle in front of another promoter they'd like to work with, make it worth their
Right.
while.
He could fight. He could fight Valdez. He could fight the Australian guy, Wilson, if he wins his next fight.
Yep.
There's still Navarrete out there. Should Navarrete not win that lightweight title belt, or even he could move up to fight Navarrete. Should he Navarrete win his upcoming
Yeah,
at
he absolutely
135?
could. And Foster has mentioned all those names. I don't think he would. I don't think he would turn down any good offer.
Indeed, indeed. Let's move on to some news here. It was announced earlier today. The rematch between Josh Taylor, Jack Catterall is set for April 27th in Leeds, England. They got into a bit of a shoving match. To folks who are listening stateside, it may not be a big deal, but to across the pond, to Great Britain, England especially, this is a big deal. The two fought a couple of years back. Taylor defending his then undisputed title at 140. To a lot of people, myself included, Gail included, Catterall won and won. I ain't gonna say with ease, but he was the clear winner. But Taylor ended up getting the win by split, and from that point, dare I say, things have it's been kind of a downward spiral for Taylor. Uh, Gave up the belts. They were set to fight. He was set to fight a rematch with Catterall. Had to subside. Had to put that aside due to an injured foot. Kind of gave Catterall a cold shoulder to fight Teofimo. And not only did Taylor lose to Teofimo Lopez, did not look good at all in the process. So he's fighting Catterall now as basically a reprieve. Catterall basically said that Josh Taylor is a fighter on the decline. Given how Taylor looked in the first fight with Catterall and in his most recent fight with Teofimo, does Catterall have a point? Is Josh Taylor not the fighter that he once was?
Well, Catterall will need to be proven right or wrong by Taylor's performance. He's got a point. Let's look at the most recent performances, the eye test, and then you look at what Teofimo Lopez looked like in his last fight. Wasn't great, yet he took care of business with Taylor. We all saw that razor close fight between Taylor and Catterall. If there was going to be a rematch, it really should have taken place long before now to maximize the interest and opportunity. But it really falls in a better late than never. This is really stuck in Catterall's craw all this time. I think he's got a massive chip on his shoulder over it. And really, for Taylor, it's the best possible offer he's got. But it is a winner go home fight. He's got to win or look incredibly good. I mean, spectacular and lose by some fluke to stay relevant. He's the trajectory of his career. There's a lot of stakes for him. Catterall, so many people, especially in the UK, the fans there, they truly believed he'd won. I certainly did. When it's a very close fight, which it was, it's really not fair to use the R word, robbery, but it did not
In this case,
result at all.
in that case, but for those who do not remember, previous fight took place in Scotland, and Taylor just could not figure Catterall out. Catterall was just one step ahead that entire fight. Put him down in round 8, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Questionable decisions on the part of the judge, on the part of the referee during that fight. And in my personal opinion, no way Taylor won. Absolutely not. Even if you've given Taylor every benefit um, of the doubt, he just struggled. He couldn't get the jab going. While Catterall, slicker, quicker, had more guile, um, won clearly. The question is, given the deficiencies we saw in Taylor in that fight, and particularly against Teofimo, who we talked about last week, Lopez doesn't have himself. He doesn't have a good jab. He relies largely on athleticism. How is he going to turn things around against a Catterall who's very slick and who's highly motivated? Um, I think the onus is here on Taylor more than anyone else because, to your point, if he loses and it's really a crossroad fight for both men, where does he go from here? The downward spiral would continue. Um, it would continue. Let's move on to some more news. And the talk all last week was this interview that Canelo Alvarez was going to do with Azteca. Certain folks, quote unquote, were hyping up. This is going to be a big announcement, big news, blah, blah, blah. Well, in hindsight, we got a bit of a nothing burger. Canelo, to paraphrase a James Brown song, talked a whole lot but said a whole lot of nothing. Talked loud but said a whole lot of nothing. The only thing that we got that he's not interested in Bud, um, not interested in Benavidez, and that his next fight will be against an American. His next fight will be against an American fighter. Very vague. A lot of people going in thought that his next fight will be against Maul Charlo, reigning champion at 160 pounds. But Maul came out on social media and said, as of right now, that's not going to happen. A lot to I don't get anything. I didn't get anything from that interview. What have you been hearing in these boxing streets in the aftermath of that interview between Canelo and Azteca Gal?
First of all, everybody who was speculating on what they were going to hear was just making shit up out of thin air. They didn't know a damn thing about it. This was a required contractual appearance by Canelo Alvarez on the network where his fights are carried in Mexico. His broadcast partner in Mexico was TV Azteca. So it was a appearance to confirm he's fighting on May 4th and confirm the extension of his broadcast arrangement with Azteca in Mexico. That's it. That's it. The only ones that were hyping the appearance and causing all the speculation was TV Azteca. Well, that's their business. To them, announcing the extension of Canelo's contract is a big deal for them. Good for them. That's great. And in Mexico, a lot of Canelo's fights are aired for free on Azteca. They are not pay-per-views. He maintains his audience in Mexico at a much lower cost than most of the rest of the world. Just very smart. That's a discussion for another day. But, idle YouTube channels, idle X Twitter accounts, got to be used for something. So people just start making shit up. But when you're the big dog, everybody's interested in what you're doing. So I get that. So when pressed beyond just giving the date out, the only little tidbit he throws out, the only little breadcrumb is I'm not fighting. I'm fighting an American. Okay. Well, that leaves out Munguia, who seemed like an obvious choice, right? And then everybody thinks, well, Benavides is American. Most people don't think that's happening. There seems to be no activity there. Neither confirmed nor denied, other than Benavides saying that he didn't think it was happening. And then we ratchet down to Jamal Charlo, who was supposed to be his opponent in his last fight until his brother stepped in and got humiliated by Canelo. And so there were some natural thoughts toward Maul, who is apparently on vacation somewhere in the Caribbean saying, I don't know shit about it, no one's talked to me. Well, that's not really a denial, folks. Not necessarily. So just hold that off to the side. I think that a lot of the attention was pointed that direction because, who isn't dreading that being the fight and everybody being incredibly disappointed about it? I mean, that is the last thing we all want to happen. So everybody starts thinking, the worst possible thoughts. So there's always room for pessimism in boxing. So they start talking about Charlo. But you do have Benavides, American. Let me also float another theory. Now, I am not saying I have heard anything specific. I am simply looking at the boxing landscape and the calendar and drawing some obvious lines between point A, point B, point C, and what we're talking about here. The other guy out there who has a fight Saturday on a Matchroom card is Edgar Berlanga. Edgar Berlanga, in case any of you haven't checked, is an American. He is undefeated at 21-0 with 16 knockouts. He has another sort of stay busy fight this weekend. He is facing Padraig McQuarrie of Belfast, Northern Ireland, at the fabulous Caribe Royale Orlando, which is suddenly the center of the boxing universe lately. And it occurred to me that I thought, God, it's been a long time since Berlanga had a fight. Well, it was really not that long. He fought last June, 8 months, longer than he should be out, but not as long as I thought. But it was such a forgettable fight. It was a 12-round decision and a complete beatdown of Golden Boy fighter Jason Quigley. So Quigley was knocked down 4 times in that fight. 4 times. So here we've got Berlanga. He holds the minor WBO strap. What if, play along with me, boxing fans, what if the reason Canelo hasn't said anything about his opponent is he's waiting to see if Berlanga wins on Saturday? And if he does, he calls up Eddie Hearn, who he's very friendly with, who he likes to do business with, who is Berlanga's promoter. And I don't think Eddie Hearn would hesitate for 1 second to sacrifice Edgar Berlanga on this fight. And do I love it? Not particularly. Do I hate it? Not as much as the Charlo fight, which I have no interest. Boxing has no interest in that fight. You would at least have a Mexican versus Puerto Rico rivalry built in. You could do the fight in New York. That's possible, although it's Cinco de Mayo, so it's likely to land in Las Vegas. But you would definitely have that built-in rivalry. Berlanga can show that he's willing to be tested, put his money where his mouth is. He's undefeated. He's young, which is an interesting wrinkle to the whole thing. Now, again, let me repeat, I am not a person to spread rumors when I don't know what's going on. This is purely observational speculation, looking at the landscape out there and what Canelo has said publicly, which is admittedly very, very little information. But hang on, boxing fans, wait until after this weekend and let's see whether I'm proven right or wrong. Don't know, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
from a monetary perspective, I get where you're going about that scenario. But personally, am I cool with it? Absolutely not. No, no, no.
But given
Yeah.
the alternatives, given the reality, of course, I would really love to see him fight Jaime Munguia. It's the right time. Munguia's off a great win. I would love it. It's not in the cards. It's not going to happen. Benavidez, not going to happen. So if your only options are, you need to play along with me here. Your only options are Jermall Charlo or Edgar Berlanga. Flip your coin. And the other big plus of Berlanga, going to cost them a lot less money than Charlo wants for what would be an absolute dog of a fight. Just of no interest to anybody but Canelo's fans, and there are enough of them to make it work.
Yeah. That's all my response to that.
Intelligent comment. Hey,
We
we
will.
have to love it, but when you've got to make the best of the available, I would rather see Berlanga, even if he gets his clock cleaned, because nobody needs to see a repeat of that fight we all suffered through in September last year.
Still, yeah. Let's go
You're
from
picking
that.
somebody else up. I think Gabe
Yeah.
Rosado's retired, okay?
Uh, uh,
He ain't fighting, anybody else that's out there. I mean, who else is out there? Who else is
yeah.
out there? Let's think about it. Let's look. Who is available in the super middleweight division at the top of the heat? Who has who is in an adjacent division that's a reality in any way? I think you're hard pressed to figure it out. The top rated fighters beyond Canelo in the division are Benavidez, not happening. Munguia, not happening. Caleb Plant, already fought him. Demetrius Andrade, no way in hell he's ever giving him a fight. David Morrell has not enough upside yet. You've got a couple other scattered names. Now, I'd be very intrigued to see him fight someone like Christian Mbili, but I don't think Mbili's cooked enough yet. It's just not quite sure, but he is floating out there. You still do have Sergey Derevinchenko, but man, he's taken a lot of punishment. He's not going to face somebody like Bektimir Melikuziev. He has won anything out of Diego Pacheco. There's no way. I don't think, and I just don't think he'll touch anybody like that. The only other guy floating around on that list, he's probably at the very, very fringes of the top 10. Edgar Berlanga.
We will see what Canelo, excuse me, decides ultimately. Keep you updated here on Pound for Pound Box Report. Let's move on to some fights upcoming, and let's keep Berlanga on the brain as he returns to the ring on the 24th to fight Pedro McCrory in Orlando on the Zone. You talked about Berlanga in his most recent fight. I still think that there's a lot more to prove from him. I haven't been that impressed in recent outings, even though he was dominant in his last performance. Context is key, and consider who he was in the ring with. I don't know if I will get anything from this fight against somebody either who's okay as a guy, as a fighter. Berlanga's the favorite, and he should win.
Yeah, he absolutely should win. This fight is teed up for him. This guy's record looks good on paper, but he's a regional Irish fighter. Apparently, Berlanga has a thing for beating up Irish fighters. He's taken on several in his career. It'll be fun for the fans in Florida. You've got him in Orlando where there's a pretty significant Puerto Rican population. So they'll get a chance to see him. It'll look good on TV. be nice and buzzy. But yeah, who are we kidding? It's a stay busy fight while he's looking for bigger fish to fry, while Matchroom still assesses him and gets him out there to try to build up enough credibility for him to face a bigger fighter. I'm just saying, if he gets a big win this weekend, I just keep an eye on things, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Let's move from that fight to triple header card uh in Tokyo, also on the 24th. Um, the headliner, quote unquote, is Takuma Inoue, who is the, I want to say, younger brother of Naoya Inoue, making the first defense of his bantamweight title against German Ancajas. But let's focus on a couple of fights. I'll take the first one here. Kosei Tanaka. Um, if this was 2020, 2021, Tanaka would be considered one of the best top 10, top 15 pound for pound fighters in the world, right? But uh, since his stoppage loss to Ioka and got dominated in the process, he's kind of fell off the scene. Many boxing heads, hardcore boxing heads, um, have not mentioned Tanaka that much. But he fights Christian Rangel for the vacant WBO belt at 115 pounds on this card, and I'll take this. For me, I've seen footage of Rangel, and the question is, how will he deal with the firepower of Tanaka? From a defensive aspect, Kosei Tanaka was exposed by the slick professionalism of Ioka when he stopped him. Um, I've seen improvements from him in his most recent fights, Tanaka, but his MO is his offense. From that side, he is elite. He can box. He has speed. He can go to the body. He has power, fluid combination puncher, and all he has to do is be somewhat responsible defensively, and I think that he can win this fight. From a pure skill perspective, from an athletic perspective, I think he's levels ahead of Rangel. No disrespect to him, but all things being fair, I think that Tanaka is the superior fighter from that standpoint, and I think he will win. Also on this card, Gail, pretty intriguing bout that no one is talking about, as Junto Nakatani uh, highlight reel knockout in his last outing. If people didn't give Curiel knockout of the year against Nontshinga last year, many felt that Nakatani's stoppage win over Maloney in June on the undercard of Haney Lomachenko, that was the knockout of the year. Nakatani, former champion at 112, recent champion at 115, moving up to 118 pounds to fight WBC champion Alexandro Santiago. And many people remember Santiago was a guy who recently beat Nonito Donaire for that belt, right? Um, Rapid ascension from Nakatani, but is Santiago, if he shows what he did, if he continues, if that fight against Donaire was not a fluke, um, I think this has to make it to be a very, very good fight. I don't if Nakatani steamrolls him, given what Santiago was able to display against Donaire, that would be very impressive.
Yeah, it sure would. Nakatani's knockout of Maloney was my knockout of the year. Absolutely spectacular performance against a very, very good opponent on enemy turf. I think he's perfectly capable of the win again. I don't really. I think he's on a roll. Every fight, um, he gets better. He's wildly entertaining. He's set up for success. He's a fan favorite. I just can't see this being anything but a terrific victory for him. Once again, y'all got to get up early or at least be a ESPN Plus subscriber so you can stream it later. I'm very grateful, though, and we all should give a tip of the cap to ESPN, who has consistently been bringing us these Japanese cards. It wasn't that long ago. There was just absolutely no way to see these fights. But now, if you're inclined, you can see them live or get up a little later and watch them during the day. It's absolutely terrific.
Indeed, and this card, for those who are interested, begins at 4 a.m. on the 24th. So if you want to watch it
Eastern
live, you're
time,
going to
1
right. Have to,
a.m. for those of us on the West Coast. I mean, it's a
yeah.
kind of thing where you have to say, well, do I go to bed really early and wake myself up, or do I just stay up that late? Or you trust that stream will be there. You stay off social media and you wake up, pour yourself your tea, coffee, or your beverage of choice and enjoy.
Main event here is Takuma Inoue, who is the younger brother of um, two-time undisputed champion Naoya Inoue, fighting former junior bantamweight champion Jerwin Ancajas. Inoue, he won the belt last April against Solis, fighting an Ancajas long-reigning champion at 115 pounds. But when he lost the title to reigning IBF uh, junior bantamweight champion Fernando Martinez, and then he lost the rematch. Didn't look good. He looked like a guy who was a spent force, right? On the one hand, it's now clear that he was having major issues making 115-pound weight limit, but still, I have my questions. At this stage of Ancajas' career, he's 32 now, Gil, right? He's been around for a long time. Does he have enough gas in the tank to deal with Takuma, who I don't think is a great fighter? I don't think is an A or B plus rated fighter, but he is solid. He is determined, and he's very active. And I think that activity may be a bit too much for Ancajas and the size.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We have really been reminded over and over lately how much activity matters. And it's an intriguing fight because for what it is, they're really well matched. And Cajas is on the, if you're going to look at the trajectory of his career, high point to low point, he's got 3 losses on his record. Now, 2 of them are to the same fighter, Fernando Martinez. The other loss on his record is quite a ways back, early in his career. He has fought a lot of his fights against regional talent in the Philippines, but he has stepped up on occasion, and he's got a win over some names that people know. He has defeated McJoe Arroyo. That was actually a good fight that did end up in a decision, but there was a knockdown in the way. He had a good win. I'm coming back over Jonathan Rodriguez, just a little bit of a surprise a couple of years ago in the earlier part of the pandemic. And he is coming off an 8-round fight, which is out of those 2 losses at the Armory on a PBC undercard. So he's teed up rather nicely, but he's got a lot of mileage on him. So is that a benefit because he's been busy, a little bit busier than Inoue? Hard to say. Inoue's competition, looking at it, the most significant name on his resume was Nordine Ubali, and he lost to him rather definitively, although the cards were all over the place. So there's just a lot of open questions to be answered. But he is the title holder, and there's always that little boost that you get when you're the champion. There's a kind of legend in boxing that when you are the guy with the belt, you fight 10% better. You hear that repeated over and over, and it does seem to be the truth. So I see perhaps a very entertaining fight, but I do think Inoue will win this one.
And while Daniel is not with us live, he's listening to us. He's listening live in our discussion about what's up, what could be upcoming for Canelo. He says, and I'll put it here, it's likely Maul. He's referring to Jamal Charlo. I still don't know. I still don't know. Uh, Even though I loathe the prospect of Canelo fighting Berlanga, Gail does raise some very, very excellent points. Um, at a certain level, money wise, given the current options that Canelo is not giving himself, Berlanga would make likely sense here. Um, and I think we're going to end things on that note, talking about that triple header. I want to thank everybody who's checking us out live or who's checking us out on YouTube. Um, Excuse me, I had a slight technical difficulty. My bad. Um, Appreciate Daniel for checking us out. If you have not done so, make sure you hit that like button. Also hit that subscribe button. It'll help the overall algorithms keep you updated on any new notification here from Pound for Pound Box Report. Begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from nyfights.com for those who want to talk boxing. Let the folks know where they can find you.
There's only one place to find me other than those social media channels, and I am at nyfights.com, nyfights.com. We've talked about the major cards coming up this weekend, but there is a card Wednesday night out of Detroit that's getting a little attention. It's kind of a club level fight. Should be interesting. We do also have a UFC Fight Pass card with Tom Loeffler and 360 Promotions on Friday night from the fabulous Chumash Casino up in Northern California. So you've got some of his younger guys and prospects. There is also a card Friday night out of Huntington, New York. You know, you have to sort of scurry around and look for these smaller ticket fights, but they are out there. They're available to see and can be well worth a good bit of entertainment. The one other piece of news that's floating around out there is Manny Pacquiao will not be fighting in the Paris Olympics on behalf of the Philippines because the Olympic Committee said no.
You're too old. Basically,
I mean, come on, this is not what it's for. I mean, nah, really a bad idea. Um, but hey, it kept his name in the news. I can't hate him for
yeah, there's that.
it.
For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter because I refuse to call it X. Brother JR at Brother JR76 for those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance slash colognes with me on IG and TikTok. You can do so at Brother JRSC. On the next episode of the Pound for Pound Box Report, we will have a recap of that triple header, world title triple header in Tokyo. Takuma Inoue versus Jerwin Ancajas for Inoue's WBA bantamweight title. Alexandro Santiago versus Junto Nakatani for Santiago's WBC 118-pound belt. And Kosei Tanaka fighting Christian um, Basagua Rangel and Kosei Tanaka fighting for the vacant WBO junior bantamweight title. And we will do a recap of Berlanga versus McCrory. Again, that fight, Berlanga versus McCrory, going to happen on the 24th in Orlando, Florida on the Zone. And a preview of another ESPN card is going to happen March 2nd in New York. The main event is Luis Alberto Lopez defending his IBF featherweight title against Raya Abe. Um, so Otibak Kalmatov is fighting a very talented Ray Ford, 12-round bout. I don't know if if there's a world title is on the line in that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gail. Um, but again, very, very intriguing bout in the featherweight division. And on the zone, also on March 2nd, the return of Amanda Serrano. She's fighting in her home country, defending her undisputed featherweight titles. Um, um, against Nina Menke. Um, Also, Jonathan Gonzalez is fighting Santiago Gonzalez, defending his WBO junior flyweight title. Let's hope he fights this time, and we don't have any issues of him pulling out at the last minute like he's done the last couple of times. Um, and the aforementioned YouTuber who I don't like to mention that much on this show, Jake Paul, he's fighting on that card as well. So we will talk about all of those bouts.
Hey,
Um,
just
this is
occurred to me. Jake Paul's an American.
no, Gail, no, no,
I
Gail.
had to troll just a little bit. On a more serious note, yes, there is a vacant WBO World Featherweight title at stake for Raymond Ford and Otabek Kolmatov.
Good, thank you. So we will talk about all of those fights. This has been episode 435 of the Pound for Pound Box Report for Gil from nyfights.com. I'm your host, Michael. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.